Hello, dear viewers. My name is Ferdin Nouri, and I'm a immigration consultant in Germany. Today, I would like to explain for you about the fact that how you can rent an apartment after getting an asylum protection, a refugee protection, a subsidiary protection, or a national ban on deportation in Germany. In fact, after you apply for an asylum in the Federal Office for Immigration and Refugees of Germany, you may get a protection from this office via a special letter sent to you by this office, which is called Anerkennungsbescheid in German language. This protection can be an asylum protection, which is called Asylanerkennung or Asylberechtigung, or a refugee protection, which is called Flüchtlingseigenschaft or Flüchtlingsanerkennung, a subsidiary protection, which is called Subsidiary Schutz in German language, or you may get a national ban on deportation, which is called Abschiebungsverbot or Abschiebungsschutz in German language. After getting one of these protections, you can refer to your respective foreigner's office, which is called Ausländerbehörde in German language, and apply for an electronic residence permit in this office. It is worth mentioning that in some cities of Germany, Landesamt or Landratsamt is responsible for it. And in such cases, you should apply for this electronic residence permit in one of these offices. After you complete and submit or send the application form with the relevant documents for a residence permit to your respective foreigner's office, this office usually gives you a fiction certificate, which in German it is called Fiktionsbescheinigung, or a preliminary certificate, which in German it is called Vorläufige Bescheinigung. And until your electronic residence permit is being prepared and issued for you, you can use this fiction certificate or preliminary certificate, and when your electronic residence permit is prepared and issued for you, you will get it and you will return the fiction certificate or the preliminary certificate back to them. For more information about the fact that how you can get an electronic residence permit after getting a type of protection from the Federal Office for Immigration and Refugees of Germany in this country, you can watch my other video about it in this YouTube channel. I will also put its link under this video for you. If you are not working and getting money from Social Welfare Office or Sozialamt, or if you are working for some hours and at the same time you are getting money from Social Welfare Office, once you get the fiction certificate, the preliminary certificate, or the electronic residence permit from your respective foreigner's office, you can register yourself in your respective job center, and after this, you can receive financial assistance from job center. For more information about the fact that how you can register yourself in job center, you can watch my other video about it in this YouTube channel. I will also put the link of it under this video for you. After registration in job center, if you're living in a refugee camp, you can look for an apartment for yourself. After finding an apartment for yourself, if the landlord or his or her representative wants to rent the apartment to you, you can submit or send the rental contract of this apartment before signing it to your respective job center. If you have not received the rental contract of the apartment, you can submit or send a copy of the exposé of the apartment to the job center. In fact, the exposé of the apartment includes, among the others, the information about the size and the rent of the apartment, and it also includes the pictures of the apartment. You can usually get the exposé of the apartment either from the landlord or from his or her representative or from the website where the apartment is being announced. When you submit or send it to the job center, you should also mention or write to the job center that they should check the details about this apartment, whether it matches their set standards for the rent of the apartments in your city, and if they can help you pay the rent of this apartment or not. After that, the job center will check the information you have submitted or sent to them about the apartment, and if the rent of the apartment and the size of the apartment match their set standards, they agree with you about it, and they will send you a letter in which it will be written that you can rent the apartment. After the agreement of the job center, you can rent this apartment and the job center will pay the rent of this apartment, and they will also pay the advance money or the deposit you must pay for the apartment, which in German it is called Mietkaution. This deposit money will be paid for you as a loan, and then you have to pay it back in small installments to your respective job center. It is worth mentioning that you have to write a separate application to your job center for the deposit of the apartment so that you can get it as a loan from this office. In German language, this application is called Antrag auf Darlehen für die Mietkaution. And based on this application, the job center will then pay the deposit for your apartment as a loan for you. And as mentioned before, this office will then take this money back in small installments from your monthly job center benefits. If the apartment you have found does not match the set standards of the job center for the rent of the apartments in your city, this office rejects your application for renting the apartment and does not agree with you to rent it. If you're working and you haven't been getting money from Social Welfare Office or Sozialamt before getting your protection from the Federal Office for Migration and Refugees of Germany, you don't have to register yourself in Job Center. In this case, you can rent an apartment from your salary. It is worth mentioning that those who work in Germany, they can even rent an apartment during their asylum procedure and they can pay its rent from their salary. After you get the type of protection from the Federal Office for Migration and Refugees of Germany, if you're working and want to rent an apartment but with your income you cannot afford it, you can find an apartment for yourself, and as I mentioned for you before, you can register yourself in Job Center and apply for the rent of the apartment and for the deposit for the apartment in your respective job center. If the job center agrees to pay the rent of the apartment and the deposit of the apartment, you can then rent it, and this office then pays for the rent of it and gives you the deposit for it as a loan. In addition, if you're working and you have got the type of protection from the Federal Office for Migration and Refugees of Germany, and you've already rented an apartment before but cannot afford the rent of the apartment, you can also submit or send the application for the registration in your respective job center, and at the same time submit or send to them the rental contract of your apartment, the copy of your pay slips of your job, and the copy of your bank statements for the last 3 months. After checking your application, your respective job center will then decide if this office helps you with the rent of your apartment or not. If you can really not afford the rent of your apartment and your living expenses with the income you have from your job, your respective job center will then help you with the rent of your apartment after this application. It is worth mentioning that your respective job center will then transfer the money for the rent of your apartment and the money for the deposit of your apartment in your bank account, and you have to then transfer them both to the bank account of your landlord. However, if you want, you can also ask your respective job center to transfer the money for the deposit of your apartment and the rent of your apartment directly to your landlord. In this case, you have to write to the job center about it with the bank details of your landlord. After your respective job center agrees to pay the rent of your apartment and the deposit money for your apartment, you can then sign the rental contract of the apartment and rent it. You can also apply for the relocation or movement costs to your new apartment in your job center. In German language, this application is called Antrag auf Umzugskosten. If the warm rent of your apartment and the bill for your gas gets more, or if at the end of the year you get a bill for extra costs of your apartment, such as the operating costs, cleaning costs, the warm water and heating costs, you can send a copy of this bill to your respective job center so that they can pay it by themselves, or they can transfer its money to your bank account, and then you can transfer this money to your landlord's bank account. On the other hand, if you get a bonus for your last year from your landlord because you have spent less gas or warm water and so on, you have to then transfer this money to your job center. If it's your first time you're renting an apartment outside the refugee camp and you're getting financial help from job center, you can also apply for the initial equipment for your new apartment in your job center. This application is called Antrag auf Erstausstattung für die Wohnung in German language. In this application, you should list the equipments you need for your new apartment. As a result of it, the job center will then either transfer the money for these equipments to your bank account so that you can buy them by yourself, or this office orders these equipments for you from some companies or from some shops, and then these equipments will be transferred for you to your apartment. Actually, in order to get these equipments from these companies or shops, you usually then have to contact these companies or shops and make appointment with them for the date and time when they should transfer these equipments to your apartment.